Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Michael Ayala in tonight for Vinnie Politan. Now, today in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the jury was seated in the trial of Theodore Edgecomb, who was charged with first-degree intentional homicide. On September 22nd, 2020, Edgecomb was riding his bike and a confrontation ensued with a couple riding in a car along the same road. A passenger in the car, Jason Cleereman, and the defendant exchanged words, leading the defendant to punch Cleereman in the face. Edgecomb rode off, and Cleereman and his wife, who was driving the vehicle, followed Cleereman. Eventually, he got out of the car and went after Edgecomb. This final altercation ended with Edgecomb shooting and killing Cleereman in what he claims was self-defense. Now, opening statements were delivered today, and there was a lot of information shared by the defense in particular that, if correct, could really change the narrative in this case. Now, regardless, this case raises many questions. What role will the defendant's actions play in this trial? What about his decision to flee for 6 months? How will that play in? What about the victim's alleged blood alcohol level, or the fact that he had a knife in his pocket, or the startling accusation by the defense that the victim's wife never called 911 after the shooting, but instead chose to call someone else while also rifling through the pockets of her dead husband, perhaps to retrieve a knife that she knew he had? Well, today the jury heard compelling opening statements from both sides, and we begin with the state attorney, Grant Hubner.
And there is a poll camera. There is a poll camera by the Milwaukee Police Department that captures both sides of this intersection. One facing westbound down Brady and one facing down Holden. Now, as the Cleeremans are waiting at this red light, at the intersection, you will see the defendant comes up on his bicycle. And when he gets along the passenger side of the Cleereman's vehicle, he stops, he interacts, he gets by the window, kind of into the window a little bit, and then he punches Jason. Punches him once. The victim's glasses go flying. Mr. Cleereman has no weapon in his hands. Yeah, he's got a knife in his pocket, but there's nothing in his hands. And the defendant pulls out his 9mm handgun. And he raises it, and he shoots the victim in the face. The bullet's going to go in above the left eyebrow, and it's going to remain in his head, where an autopsy pulls it out. The firearm is so close that there's actually stippling and burned particles on the victim's face.
And for the defense, Edgecomb's attorney, Beaverly Lamar, delivered the opening statement and described the Cleeremans as the clear aggressors.
The evidence is going to show in this case that the Cleeremans, well, specifically Jason Cleereman, yelled out, "Get the f*** out the road!" And it's at that point that Mr. Edgecomb got very upset. It's a very offensive word. Now, Mr. Edgecomb will testify and explain that as a bicyclist, this is not the first time that he's almost been struck by a vehicle. That is not what bothered him. Mr. Edgecomb is going to explain it's the use of that racial slur which set him over the top. So he's not just going to get food and just find a car and just go punch somebody. He goes to the car, he asks Mr. Cleereman, "Were you talking to me?" Mr. Cleereman says, "Yes, racial slur, I was talking to you." And that's when Mr. Edgecomb punches Mr. Cleereman. The evidence in this case is going to show they chased Mr. Edgecomb. The evidence is going to show in this case, Mr. Cleereman says to his wife, "Follow him." And Ms. Cleereman, no objection. She does exactly what her husband says, and she follows Mr. Edgecomb. Mr. Edgecomb, when he testifies, he's going to explain to you that the last thing he was thinking about when a gunshot goes off when he's trying to avoid being tackled by a man that's over 60 pounds heavier than him was what he's gonna do a month from now. Or what he's gonna do 3 months or 4 months from this very moment. Or, as the state talks about the 6 months, this was the last thing he was thinking about what he's gonna do 6 months at this point. That's what the evidence is gonna show. He was thinking about how he's going to get home to his family at this time. That's what the evidence is gonna show.
Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae is joining us live tonight from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All right, Julia, opening statements were very, very compelling today, particularly the defense. So fill us in first on the state's approach in openings.
Michael, there was high energy inside of that courtroom during these opening statements. And the prosecution, they were succinct but dynamic. Huebner really laid things out for this jury in a compelling but concise way. He only took about 10 minutes to tell this entire story, really getting in and getting out, just explaining what happened, the initial confrontation, the words that he said was an expletive, and the word idiot. He does not say in his openings that any kind of racial slurs were used. And then he focuses most of the opening statements on what the defendant did afterward. We know that they are telling this jury this shows he knew he was guilty because he walked over the victim. He left with his bike. He did not return for 6 months, went on the run. So I noticed a lot of that being focused on by this prosecution and paid attention to by this jury.
Absolutely. Now, the defense, Julia, they really went after what they claim is a narrative that has been out there about this case, trying to switch that around a little bit. And they actually revealed some startling details about this case. As I listened in, I was like, a lot of us were like, wow, that never heard that before. Fill us in on some of that.
They did, and I thought B. Ivory Lamar, he really took head on the problems with the case. One being that punch. The prosecution did a great job of explaining to this jury how serious this punch was. And then that video was shown later to this jury. And what led up to it, the defense said, was this racial slur that was being hurled at his client. And that, yes, he did come up on the side of this vehicle and he did punch the victim in this case, and that it was wrong, that he should not have done it, he should have handled it differently, that he should have called police. But then he started to talk about the alleged victim in this case, Jason Cleereman, talking about the fact that he was someone who had just come from a night of drinking heavily with his wife, that his blood alcohol content was 1.5 times over the legal limit, that he had THC or form of marijuana inside of his system at the time. And then the defense took aim at his wife, at the victim's wife, Evangelina Cleereman, who was driving that SUV, saying that she didn't react the way that you would expect a grieving wife to act after witnessing her husband being shot and killed, that she didn't call 911, that she didn't apply pressure to any wounds or try to administer anything life-saving, but rather that she was going in and out of their car, that she was taking things out of his pockets. And interesting that he kept bringing up the word pockets, even though it's so difficult to see in that surveillance video. But this jury was then shown something that was in Cleereman's pocket that was very important for this jury to see, and that's a knife that he had in his pocket that was found by first responders once they looked inside his pocket. The prosecution says Cleereman didn't have anything in his hands at the time of this confrontation, but the defense says there was something in his hand. They don't go so far as to say it was the knife, but they did raise questions for this jury, and I noticed some of them looking at each other as if to say that is a question we want answers to.
Absolutely. We all want answers to those particular questions. All right, quickly, I know I noticed it. Tell us if you noticed anything different about the defendant today.
Well, clearly his appearance is markedly different from what we see in the mugshot. Today he was very clean cut. I noticed him looking very somber at the defense table, trying often to sit very tall, but he really comes across as a meek person sitting there next to his attorney who is more bombastic in his style. Clearly, just from what we've seen in the mugshot, his hair looks different, but what he looks like in the courtroom is much more closely to the pictures that we've seen of him with his family. The defense gave us many pictures of this man with his 5 children, and that's how he looks on a regular basis. So it raised the question of whether or not that picture that we've seen in the mugshot, where his hair is really long, his beard seems very unkempt, that may be a result of him being on the run for 6 months. And according to his attorneys, he was trying to find representation. According to prosecution, he was on the lam and not planning to turn himself in ever.
Yeah, 2 very different looks for the defendant there. All right, Julia Janae, thank you so much for that report. Truly appreciate it. It is time now to bring in my think tank for tonight. Joining me tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. In Los Angeles, California, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. And in Phoenix, Arizona, criminal defense attorney and the attorney who represented Jodi Arias and the author of the book series Trapped with Ms. Arias, Kirk Nurmi. Thanks to all of you for joining me tonight. This is a true think tank, so I really appreciate you being here with me. So, Eklund, I have to start with you. First and foremost, what was your take on the openings? I thought they hit all the points they needed to hit and did a fantastic job. Love to get your thoughts.
Oh my God, Michael, I loved it. I loved all of it. I love the defense's opening. I love it when they don't play small, they play big. He had a theme, but unfortunately I'm not pro prosecution, but the prosecutor kind of shot himself in the foot saying the firearm was so close. That meant that the alleged victim was really that close to the defendant. So I love it. I love just the fact that they are putting it in perspective for Edgecomb. You have the pictures to show that his hair is usually this way, and also to argue I see that people may have problems with his hair and he's been on the run, but he just killed a white man in Wisconsin. He is literally police could have killed, anybody could have killed him at that point. So I am interested to see how this attorney is going to make it make sense, how it's going to really close full circle. I can't wait.
Yeah, Kirk Nurmi, she's exactly right, and that was going to be my next question. Both sides seems to be using this idea that the gun was close to their advantage. And when the prosecutor was talking about it, he seemed to be suggesting that that would help their case somehow, that it was so close to him. He shot him point blank range. And of course, the defense made that same claim. Well, he was so close, he had to shoot him within inches of his face. So what are your thoughts on that particular fact and who it might help?
I think that ultimately helps the defense, Michael, because he was so close. He was charging, right? And we go back to this whole idea, we talk about it, put it in the context as well of the knife, right? Whether it was moved by the wife or not. Did this man really run out of the car after being punched and have a knife in his pocket and not draw it? What was Mr. Cleereman expecting to do, right? And so I think that all ties into it. And really it favors the defense, because if they can make an assertion that he had the knife, Mr. Cleereman had the knife in his hand, that actually the defendant acted with great restraint because he didn't shoot him until he absolutely had to. So to me, that's a fact that favors the defense strongly.
Yeah, we're going to have to look closely at where exactly that knife was and what he might have had in his hand. There was an allusion to it by the defense. Nima Rahmani, the defense also brought in something regarding the N-word, and that this was no ordinary interaction. Things like that happen all the time while you're riding a bike on the road, or happen to this defendant. But this one was sparked by the use of the N-word. I want to get your thoughts on the use of the N-word and whether that or how that will play into the case.
Michael, it's very important. It's the most disgusting racial slur one can utter. And given the history of what African Americans have suffered in this country, it really dirties up the victim in this case. It's someone who's drunk, someone who has a knife, and who's uttering racial slurs. So paints a very damning picture. I think the defense did a very good job in their opening statement. I think this is a very strong defense case. And I think the prosecution needed to own up to that fact, or at least address it in their opening statement and say, no, that's not true. Because right now, I think the defense is controlling the narrative. Week in and week out, we come here on Court TV and we track these cases. And I say that the evidence is overwhelming and this is a strong prosecution case. But I can see why Eklund and Kirk are so excited about about this one, because this one, I think, could go either way.
Yeah, this is certainly going to be interesting. And I think that the prosecution did suggest that he didn't use the N-word, that he said an expletive, idiot, something along that line, did not use the N-word. That's their claim. And they're calling a number of witnesses. So I'm sure folks will testify. The wife's going to take the stand. I'm sure she'll say what he said as well.